Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. Today we have on Glenn Poulos. He is the VP and General Manager of NWS Canada. He has been through a number of exits, a number of acquisitions, and is a big fan of really helping his employees understand what they're doing in their business, how they can contribute through values, which everybody knows is something that I'm passionate about. So I'm super excited to talk to Glenn. Thanks for coming on, Glenn. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Really nice to be here today.
Yeah. So Glenn, you're something that you are passionate about is really running an entire business, and you've done this a few times. So now you've been acquired and you've exited a few times. When it comes to culture, what was the kind of the aha moment for you? Where in your career, what was happening? What occurred where you thought, oh, this is okay, I get it now, or oh my God, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner, something like that? What was that culture? What was that moment for you?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. And I'd like to say it was like in 1985 when I was 20 something. And
Wow, you're ahead of the game, ahead of most of us, ahead of me.
But I mean, no, that's when I sort of struck out on my own. And I've ran several companies. Two were ones that I was the major shareholder in, and then one I was also retained by a large Japanese company. And and my titles were always the same: vice president and general manager. And I've always loved, although I'm very salesy in nature and I have a sales background, I love, being the general manager, which basically means you're kind of the general, as I like to say, right? And you manage through all the problems and challenges, and your job is sort of to provide guidance and decision-making to the leaders of the business, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm technically not doing all the doing, but I'm enabling all the doers, all the leaders of the doers to do all the doing, right? If I can say it in that unsophisticated
That's great.
manner.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
And although it's can be hair raising at times, I love when challenging things come up and you have to make decisions, because I've realized that I'm capable of doing that, and that's really where the rubber meets the road for whether or not you can be an effective leader, right? Mm-hmm. Someone comes to you, serious problem. What are we going to do? Could be a problem with the bank, the credit line. It could be a problem with a staff member. It could be a major issue. It could be lost a major customer, losing a big deal. There's so many things, right? And you have to be able to think quickly and decisively. And once you've made a decision, you have to stay the course and show commitment to the decisions that you've made. Obviously, you need to correct your course if you have to along the way.
Yeah, of course.
But honestly, as it relates to where the kind of thinking I have now, it probably wasn't until early 2019 where I kind of went down a new path. My prior business, I remember we spent a lot of time on core values, and we had a large contingent of staff members. It was 100 people in the company. And I mean, as I just vaguely remember, there was probably maybe 20 on the initial brainstorming session. I think it took an entire weekend or something.
Yeah.
And we used a similar method this time as well, but I mean, the way we inculcated them into our business, as we like to say, in this second round in 2019 is one I'm really proud of. And essentially, it came about as a result of the fact that, we had grown rather large in my company that I just sold in 2022. And we had made some bad decisions along with the good decisions, right? And so we were paying for the bad decisions with the good decisions profits.
Yeah.
And for a while it masked each other, and you don't really notice, and you're like, hey, look at how great I am selling all this stuff. And then, but wait a minute, and the finance guy comes to you and tells you that you lost $1.4 million in 8 months, and you're going to flip your covenant with the bank, right? And we realized we needed to change the way we ran the business. And so we had to make some tough decisions, which were probably the most challenging thing in business I've ever done, where we went from 80 people down to 29 people.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. And then we installed an operating system in the business. And I didn't, I'm not the author of the system. We use EOS. It's very, very well known, and
Yep, that's a great system. EOS. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
EOS. Many people are familiar with it, and we are diehard EOS operators and
Yeah.
fans of it in our company.
Yep. Yep.
And we went about setting the vision for the company, setting the core values and stuff like that, right? And so
Yeah.
your initial question, I don't remember exactly how you worded it, but it was sort of, when did you, and it was
Yeah. What was the
2019 is
aha
the answer.
moment, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of leaders, not a lot of leaders, and definitely not in the 80s, were cognizant of the idea of culture as a tool, as something that you could control, right? And that's really what we're trying to do, and proselytize.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested. What was the aha moment? What was the spark where you said, "Oh," I mean, maybe you didn't even call it culture, right? But you arrived there at some point. What was that? What was that moment?
Yeah, the one thing that's carried me through the years is really about having the right staff. But the real aha moment was when we had to restructure that business in 2019. That's when I became sort of a new person, right? In the prior companies, we did have core values. We did have a strong commitment to and I'm always using now EOS language, but I didn't back then. I didn't know it. Of course, I didn't speak that language back then, but it was the right person in the right seat, right? So yep. Honestly, the real aha moment that I can think of in recent memory, being 61, that only goes back so far, right? Was in 2019 when I had to restructure the business and change the way we did everything.
You
right?
got to start from the beginning.
Yeah. Like I like to say, there was only one thing that we had to change, and that was everything. Right. And
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was a reset for you, and you were able to establish your values. And so how did you go about establishing those values in a way that was resonant with the employees? How did you get them? You used the term inculcated.
Right.
That's always a big question that I hear about. Okay, great, we're able to define these, but how do we get everybody to believe it? Because you can't have everybody in the company creating those values.
Yeah. So part of the, now that it's been like 4 years of this newer kind of a system and set of values now, and as I shared with you earlier when we spoke about, our values have changed because we were purchased by another company, right?
We'll get into that in a second.
Into that later. Yeah. But sticking with the original core values, which were in play up until a couple months ago. We started with a broader team, and we had these sessions where we literally sort of used the big paper, the 2x3 sheets of paper on the wall, and we had a facilitator that knows how to get it out of you, and it was painful. And so we not only came with the 4 core values, which were committed to service excellence, solutions driven, passionate contribution, and results matter. Mm-hmm. And we came up with some bullets that each one of them, what they meant. Right? What does results matter mean? What is passionate contribution? What does a solutions driven mean? What is
you can't just put that value headline, is what I call it, out there and assume people know what they're talking about. So right. I'm nodding my head vigorously here.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we had to come up with things about, fostering inclusivity and diversity, encouraging learning and development, things like that. But also, coming up with, when a customer called, not just selling what part numbers and what we have on the shelf, but figuring out what they need, and and really training our people on those values. But then later, throughout that 4 years, people started believing them when we started hiring, firing, rewarding and motivating people based on the core values.
Exactly.
So we use a system called Motivosity, which again, there's hundreds of systems like that out there nowadays, but it's a core value shout out system. It's software. It's like a Facebook, and we use it to recognize personal birthdays, work birthdays, 1, 3, 5 year anniversaries, and but also we give people money every month. to so every member of the staff gets a certain amount of money. Some people get $5, some get 10, managers get 50, and they have to call out a core value. And then we also have all sorts of like incentives to keep people using the system, right? To keep looking for core value shout outs. And so people start looking for, hey, so-and-so really, they delivered their results matter. I'm going to give them $2 of my money this month, and so any staff member can call out any other staff member for core values.
Peer to peer. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But let me push back, or let
sure.
me push on something for a second. $2. Does that make a difference? Does that matter to people?
So, well, I always equate it to the same thing. And I actually, shameless plug for the book, right? I also have a chapter in my book, called Greed-Based Learning. It's whenever money's on the line, your mentality switches, right? So I don't follow football, but once in a blue moon, I'll get sucked into some $5 bet or whatever, that I can't avoid. And that's the only game I watched that year, right? And the only one, because people, the $2 doesn't make a financial difference to them, but the personal reward, like, oh, I got shouted out by so-and-so and I didn't know they thought of me that way. And the $2 doesn't matter. But I mean, by putting the money with it, it triggers some kind of a mental reaction, with people. And, someone walks up to you and gives you $5. I mean, it's like, oh, $5, I can go get a Starbucks now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so no,
So
I mean,
it's the symbology
of
the money more than the money itself.
Yeah, but zero wouldn't work. Like, I don't think the system would work the same without even some amount of money attached to it. I don't know. I
would say on the other end, it doesn't work when it's a lot of money.
No, right. Yeah.
Because then it skews your motivation.
Yeah. It does. And also it would, you would be gaming the system too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You would be gaming it.
You can't take that out of humans, right? We're going to get,
so it's hey, boss, did you notice that how I results mattered and, committed to service excellence while I was doing solutions driven and passionate contribution? No, I didn't notice that, but let me give you $50.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's move the timeline forward a little bit. So you worked really hard on these values. This is something that you're recognizing values-driven behaviors, which is something that is really important because a lot of organizations, they recognize and reward things that maybe it's the president's award or whatever it is, and people don't know how to respond to that. So you're doing that, you're working really hard, and then you get acquired, right?
Yeah.
So good news, you've exited, right? You're actually, you told me that you're part of this new organization, which is often the case, but you woke up, you went to sleep one night with one set of values and you woke up the next day and you had a whole new set of values along with all of your employees. What was that like? How do you manage that? How do you solve for that? Because that can't be easy. That's kind of culture whiplash.
It is. Yeah. Just before I answer that question though, I want to just tell you one last sort of thing about the old core values. And
yes, please.
We realized that, there was only so many ways, you can sort of remind people of core values. And so we were constantly trying to come up with ways to sort of, like I said, inculcate the values into people, right? So I feel that me and the marketing communications guy, we came up with a brilliant method that, and we came up with a game and we gamified the core values. And what we did was we used a publication that our business had, and we buried, what do they call them? Easter eggs or something inside and we made a huge phrase, right? That was indicative of the core values, right? And it wasn't like an exact sort of verbatim statement of the sub bullets and the bullets themselves, but they were related. And it was kind of like a bit of a paragraph. And then we turned it into a wheel of fortune. And so basically every week you were able to get a letter and you were able to buy vowels. And when you bought a vowel, that went to charity, right? And if you could solve the puzzle, if you solve the puzzle, then you get to go into the draws I think that the top draw was like $5,000. We made it very significant. Oh. And there was extremely high take up. And the problem was you had to scour all of our all of these documents and things where our core values were being called out, right? In order to figure out the clue, in order to
Oh my
guess the
gosh.
letter. And anyways, I'm always very proud of it. And we had such huge take up, and we ended up doing a different core value. I can't remember exactly what the criteria was, where at the end, if you finished the challenge, then everybody got an Apple product of their choice, up to like an iPhone, iPad, something like that, right? And
Nice,
that
nice,
was like
nice.
wickedly, obviously, that was,
Team
yeah,
building,
yeah.
team
So
investment.
so we yeah, so we were acquired in February of 2022, and we didn't change our name until June of 2023. And that's really when our core values changed. One of our core values did move over from the old company to the new company, and it's results matter. And the newer core values are people first, work smart, customer focus, continuous improvement, and results matter. And like, to be honest, like, it's only been since June, right? And my challenge has been how to reproduce the magic of what we had done
Exactly.
again, right? And it's almost like, uh, your skit was fun the first time, right, Glenn? Now what are you going to do this time, right? For a second act.
Yep.
And and so yeah, it's really been a struggle, because people were felt so invested in them and owned them so much. And because we didn't get to participate in the creation, and I'm not exactly sure of the genesis really of
Yes, of course. No,
of
that's
them,
what you
because I
just said
wasn't
is
there.
exactly right, because you didn't get to create
Yeah.
be part of the creation of them.
Yeah.
That to me is key. So I imagine it's a little bit of a struggle with your employees now. Is
It
that not
is.
true?
It is. It is very much so. And also, I'm sort of, because we're owned by a U.S. company, which is owned by private equity. So the U.S. company had their core values, and now I'm trying to explain to them about the sub bullets and how important they are. And then, but it's really, I'm kind of selling it in both directions, right? I'm trying to sell to
Yep.
my corporate
Yep.
people what I need to do, and then I'm trying to sell to my people how to absorb these into their daily life, right? And
Yep.
so
Yep.
while I'm selling upstairs, I've basically taken some liberties downstairs and basically said, look, let's take some of the magic of being friendly and easy to do business with, for instance, right? Let's figure out how to apply that to the new core value.
Yep.
Like, we can't change the bullets that are the core values, but we can take the old recipe, like the spices that went into it, cayenne, chili peppers, whatever, right? And we can put those spices into the new core values and figure out where would they fit, right? And obviously nothing fits perfectly, and but that we did allow the staff to participate in that and come up with ideas, and that's fostered some progress, right? But we're in such early days now. I'm still, I'm thinking, hey, I mean, they've all got brand new iPads and stuff. I have to come up with new ways of
Yep.
doing it. And
Yep.
I'm still figuring that part of it out, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
it is the one thing that I've learned so much over the years, right? And I try to explain it to people, and they kind of look at me strange or whatever. It's like whenever there's the slightest bit of change, I'm always like, oh man, it's gonna be rough. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're just like, we're just changing banks or something, you know what I mean? Or we're just, what I don't know,
Yeah.
a
Even
perfect
the
example,
smallest
but
changes,
the
right?
smallest change, right? And they're like, why are you having such a stress fit over it, right? And I'm like, oh, it's going to be a nightmare. Everybody's going to freak out. And they're like, why would they freak out? I'm like, because it's change. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Change is tough. Change is
yeah.
tough.
And so fortunately, as a Canadian company, I mean, for us, we really didn't change much. Like, they bought us kind of lock, stock, and barrel, and they pretty much left it the same. And then they bought a different company, which is actually in Quebec, and they're, believe it or not, they're like mostly French speaking
Yep.
and like non-bilingual, right? Whereas a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
people in Quebec are bilingual, but a
Yeah.
lot of their staff, because it's in sort of rural Quebec, do not speak English really at all. And And so that was another huge challenge about, how do you come in? And I mean, not only, say, hey, guess what? I'm going to email you some core values, but I got to do it in French, right? And translate it all.
It's not
And
even about the language. I mean, it is about the language, but it's about culture, capital C
yeah,
culture as well. And so that's you have that there's a lot to do there. And I think what I want to call out is what you said, which is that change is hard. And I think what a lot of organizations don't understand when either they are looking to acquire a company or being acquired is the opportunity and the potential liability of
right,
culture within that situation. And so what we're hearing from you is the symptom of what's happening. Now you're obviously a very experienced and competent leader, and I know that you're going to do it. You're going to be able to do it eventually, right? You have had successes, and I trust that you're going to be able to figure out this one too. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be hard.
right.
That's what I hear in your story about this, and I think it's a word of warning, of looking out for those organizations, and what it means to bring on a new organization wholesale, and that can be problematic because you are really talking about people that care deeply about what it was before. And now you're like, hey, now you have a new logo or a new
Yeah.
name or a new set of values. That's hard for people. And I think that's underestimated. And I think that's what I hear in the stories that you're telling today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we really try to, I'm a big proponent of empathy, right? Which is, uh, feeling what a person feels, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sympathy is, means you understand what the person is feeling. Compassion is a willingness to relieve their suffering, right? But
Mm-hmm.
empathy is literally putting yourself in their shoes for a minute and feeling what they feel. It's like, what would I feel if I didn't speak English and the new boss for Canada shows up and he's from Ontario and English speaking or whatever. And so, I took it upon myself. I've always been sort of, an armchair practicer of trying to become bilingual and failing miserably, right? So, I mean, I do have a very reasonable command of broken French, right? But not enough to like just be
No.
dropped into a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I from the get-go, I started translating, like taking what I would say in English and then getting it properly translated into French, into Quebecois French, not Google French.
Yeah.
And then when I would give the town halls and everything, giving them in both languages from the get-go, we started translating everything obviously from the get-go, but it wasn't what they were expecting, right? They kind of expected that they were going to be, maybe bullied a little bit by the bigger
Yeah. Yeah.
one.
Of
But
course.
we took
Yeah.
it from the
Yeah.
exact opposite, right? And
Yeah.
tried to
Yeah.
think what it would be like to be in their shoes and to make them feel comfortable,
Yeah.
offering them all the services in their language of choice and offering language training, and which we have lots of people enrolled in now. And
Yeah. I mean, that probably goes a long way with them, I would
yeah,
imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Listen,
So
Glenn Poulos, VP and General Manager of NWS Canada. You have a new book that just came out, Never Sit
yeah.
in the Lobby. Quick synopsis. Who should buy the book?
So anyone that like works in a company, it's a great book because, and there's parts for the salespeople, there's parts for managers, there's hiring mistakes, hiring wins, hiring mistakes that I've done, some bad stories, and
I love
mistakes
that.
not doing the due diligence, there's there's a lot on building rapport with your coworkers and your family members, and just in life. And it's 57 tips on how to build a career, right? And
Perfect.
again, a lot of it is, especially right at the front, it stacks together a lot of my little tricks that I've used over the years in order to, I think I shared with you earlier, how to get, act, and stay in front of your clients and how to be a pleasure to do business with always, even when you don't get the business, right? And it's worked, and I treat, the same thing about with the staff, right? How to get and stay in front of my staff and be a pleasure to work for, in all, in everything we do, right? And so you can flip it open to any page, find a rule, read it over, put it back down, pick it up a few days later and find another rule and say, oh, I just love that one. And find yourself repeating them to staff members when they say, what do I do if such and such?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Glenn Poulos, Never Sit in the Lobby. You can find it on Amazon or wherever you find your audio and hardcover copies. Glenn, I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the audience with Great Mondays Radio. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Josh. Really happy to be here.